To him, I leave my house, located in 1980 Mandaroa, Musafatu, Shizuoka Prefecture, and all my personal belongings therein stored, for him to use and dispose of as he pleases. And I wish to extend to him my hope that, as little as this gift may be, it gives him a small head start into the brighter future I know he'll build for himself. Young Midoriya, live your life to the fullest, and never forget that a warm heart and a kind smile can be stronger than 10 one for alls. The last words hurt him twice as bad, and his crying got uglier yet not louder. He covered his face with a forearm and felt his mom nodding at the detective to keep going. Naomasa proceeded to get into legal technicalities, including omissions, bonds, and the discretionary powers of the executor, but Izuku didn't bother paying attention. He assumed his mother would do it for him, and even if she didn't, he trusted everyone in the room to make sure he understood if anything relevant to him was said. A house. All Might had left him a house. His house. Mandaroa neighborhood was an upper-class part of the suburbs that was famous for housing many pro-heroes that wanted a tranquil, peaceful life when they weren't on duty. He'd never even visited that part of the city, and soon he would be owning a house there. All Might's house. It was an incredible, unexpected gift, but it somehow felt wrong. How could he accept that? He. He didn't deserve it, did he? It was too much. He wouldn't be able to live with himself knowing he was sleeping in the same room All Might did, or that he was eating in his dining room. How could he? How could he accept such a generous gift when he hadn't been able to even save him? Before he knew what was going on, he had left the hospital room and was now standing in the middle of an endless dark void, facing the vestige of his mentor. Don't fool yourself, young Midoriya, All Might told him, his voice echoing in the undefined space around them. Your guilt blinds you, but even you should be able to see that I meant everything I said in my last will. A house may not be much, but how can you say that? He interrupted, wiping fresh tears away. A house is. It's too much. I know you'll become a great hero. With the money you'll earn, you will be able to buy bigger and better houses than the one I left for you. Material possessions aren't all that important, young Midoriya. But it's your house. How could I? It was my home, yes. And it held sentimental value for me, which is why I wouldn't want it to be anyone else's. You are my successor, and All Might's vestige looked away for a second, and although his smile didn't hesitate, Izuku could see his eyes shining brighter with incipient tears. Well, you've read what I had to say about you. Did you really mean it? Yes, he responded without missing a beat. Izuku nodded, trying to get a grip on his emotions. But, did you mean it? He asked once again. Do your memories only go up until the moment you passed one for all to me? Are you the All Might that wrote that will, or are you the All Might that completed my training? More of the latter, the vestige admitted, looking back at Izuku, but I'm also part of the former. When you held my hand in my last moments, our blood touched, and whatever residual energy of one for all had lingered in me went to you. In a way, I'm an amalgam of two Toshinoris, but one thing that stays consistent and that only seems to grow in time is the affection I felt for you. Follow the advice you gave to young Eri today. I died with the hope that you would continue on the path you chose, and I left you my house as a small token of appreciation. Feel free to use it or not do with it as you please, young Midoriya, but don't feel guilty or afraid to accept it. Izuku couldn't think of anything else to say, so instead, he ran ahead, cut the distance between them short, and hugged the hulking figure of his master. The vestige of All Might returned the embrace and held him tight. Can I stay here? Izuku asked, pressing his face against All Might's torso. Just a little longer. As long as you need. Are you ready? Hawks was standing next to the door, his still recovering wings flapping behind him, getting ready to take off. Yeah, are you sure we should leave like this? Shouldn't I? I don't know, take a car or something? Izuku asked, stretching his arms as he looked at the glass door that led to the street. I mean, you could, but why would you? We can fly, I can float, right? You can fall with style, I get it, you're lame. Izuku snorted and shook his head. Hawks could be a bit of a snarky guy sometimes. Yeah, it's easier to move like this, but I can't really use my powers without the supervision of a hero. I'm a hero, I'll supervise you. But remember, the commission has already granted you your license. The act will just be for publicity and show business. Now come on. Put on some sunglasses, walk next to me, wave your hand to the cameras, and don't say anything. Got it? All right, sure, let's go, he said. Those sunglasses weren't his thing, so he kept those in his pocket. As the two opened the hospital doors and walked outside, Izuku couldn't avoid thinking to himself how crazy it was that he could casually walk right next to the current number one hero and have him joke around him like they were friends. He wouldn't call himself a friend of Hawks, best genist, or the Lurkers, but having fought side by side with them, the almost reverential, divine appreciation he felt for them had tamed down to a still an admittedly high level of respect and appreciation. But at the very least, he didn't become a stuttering mess when he talked to a pro hero like he once would have. Once he took a step outside the hospital, the flashes and screams from the press hit him like a tidal wave, and he understood why Hawks suggested wearing sunglasses. The wing hero smirked at the obvious discomfort in Deku's face due to the flashes. Just smile and wave, Midoriya, he told him, raising a hand and doing as he instructed, smile and wave. Izuku channeled his inner All Might, thought of the happiness he felt when his friends accepted his apology, focused on those feelings, and put on the biggest smile he could produce. When he raised his arm and waved it at the cameras, everyone lost their minds, going wild as he had just scored a championship goal. Everyone seemed to be asking him something different at the same time, but the words mixed up into a convoluted clamor he couldn't make a sense of. All right, that should be enough. Let's get going. You should go first, Izuku suggested. My takeoff is a lot more explosive. Hawk stopped waving his hand, looking incredulously at the teenager next to him. Did you just call me slow, Midoriya? I'm not saying that. Just that, your acceleration is incremental, whereas mine is a strong impulse at first that dies down as I go, so it makes sense for you to go first, so I. Chill, I'm just messing with you, Hawks told him, ruffling his green hair to the delight of the press. Though you better go fast, 'cause I'm not slowing down after that. And with that, he opened his wings and took off, flying up into the sky at an already impressive speed. Izuku shook his head with a smile on his face. Hawks took pride in his speed. He took a mental note of never bringing up their differences in speed again. With all eyes now on him, he crouched and let one for all run through his veins. An aura of green lightning surrounded him, and without wasting any more time, he kicked the ground below in combination with his float quirk to rocket up towards Hawks. With a playful grin, he didn't slow down. and in a matter of seconds he had not only caught up with the current number one hero, but he even flew past him. "Oh, it is on," he heard Hawks say, and with a chuckle, the two began an impromptu race to get to Izuku's apartment. He enjoyed traveling through the air without the constant fear of an assassin attacking him out of nowhere, or the knowledge that he was heading to where his danger sense pointed, and every second it took him to get there meant more people would get hurt. He also enjoyed the silence, something he'd gotten used to in the past couple of months. It helped clear his head, and now that all for one was gone for good, he had nothing to spend every minute dreading for. It liberated him. It allowed him to close his eyes and simply focus on the wind against his face. Soon enough, they reached his apartment building, and they both hovered above it. Remember, the press isn't allowed to film where you live. No one is you're effectively a pro hero now, so if you see someone you don't trust trying to get an interview from you or something, call Mara and they'll get kicked out. Thank you, Hawks, for everything. I can't even begin to tell you how much it means to me. I was thinking about this earlier, but it's still hard to believe that I'm here talking with a pro hero as big as you, he admitted, scratching his cheek with a finger and looking away from Hawks. I get it. I couldn't believe it the first time I stepped onto the stage along with Endeavor and All Might. But you know what? In the end, we're all heroes. Just because some are better than us, it doesn't mean we're that different. But, you're the current number one, Izuku said with a confused look. No one's better than you. The Billboard rankings are just a publicity stunt, kid. I'm proud of the job I do, but I don't think I could hold a candle to people like Genist, Mirko, Gang Orca, or Edgeshot. They've been at this for far longer than I have, and I think they've made a much bigger impact than me. Huh, I guess you're right. And not that you haven't made an impact, I mean that. Don't worry, I get it. Plus, I won't be holding the number one position for much longer, he cryptically said, looking away with a smirk. What do you mean? Your mother's probably waiting for you with a big meal, he said, ignoring Izuku's question. You can call me if you need anything. I know the bottle's over and you don't need me babysitting you. Not that we ever did, in all honesty. But seriously, anything you need, just give me a call. I will. Thank you, Hawks. Thank you, Deku, he said, surprising Izuku by calling him by his hero name. They both smiled at each other, and with one final polite nod, Izuku regulated his float quirk to descend to the balcony of his apartment. True to what Hawks said, Izuku could already smell a delicious meal being cooked. He took a step towards the sliding glass door but hesitated before knocking to let his mom know he was there. He took a look at his department. He hadn't been there for so long. A weird sense of nostalgia took over him, and the smell of Katsudon flooded his lungs with the long breath he took. He gently knocked on the glass, and soon his mother came running to him, opening the glass door and welcoming him with a smile. Welcome home, Izuku. He was home, truly back home. He nodded at his mom and stepped inside, looking around him like he was visiting a museum for the first time. To be honest, I just started cooking, so it'll be a while before it's ready. Why don't you go to your room to lay down for a bit? Yeah, I'll do that. Call me when it's ready. With that, he took off his shoes and went to his room, opening the door to it with the same care he would disarm a bomb. Once inside, he wasted no time standing in the middle of the room and looking around him. Everything had stayed in the same conditions he'd left them. All his posters, all the action figures, his computer, his books, his notebooks. It looked like a Polaroid picture of the past, a projection he walked on. He almost felt like an intruder, standing in someone else's room. And yet every corner of it brought him back to old times, with a simpler life in a less complicated world. He walked to his desk and touched the surface of his notebooks. He had learned so much in the past couple of months, he could probably fill at least 4 more of those. His eyes then went to his old phone, connected to a charger and resting next to his bed. He'd left it there when he went rogue, using a new one that Endeavor had gotten him to stay off the grid. With curiosity, he took the phone, disconnected it, and unlocked it as he sat on his chair. His eyes went wide. He had never had so many unread texts in his life. Heck, he didn't think he'd received as many texts, period. He opened the app, and his eyes scanned the list of unread conversations. He'd left the class group chat, so he'd probably missed out on a few thousand messages, but a quick scroll showed that every single one of his classmates had tried to contact him. Judging by the numbers, at least several times. Not only them, but also Mirio, Najire, and even people from Class B, and a few numbers he didn't recognize. Feeling overwhelmed, he decided to start reading them. He almost clicked on the most recent conversation but decided to leave that for last. Instead, he started from the oldest and slowly made his way back to the most recent. The texts, for the most part, were very similar between conversations. The oldest mostly showed how much he'd worried everyone with his sudden disappearance. Midoriya, where are you? Why did you leave the group chat? Are you okay? Do you need help? Midoriya, I know you're working with my father, but he won't tell me where you or call me if you need backup. I tried calling you, but you just won't pick up. What's going on? We're worried about you. Please call us, Midoriya. We have received your letters, and while we understand the reasoning behind your decision, we would like to talk to you about this so we can offer you our input. Please reply to this message so we can arrange a meeting. We are your friends, please remember that. Then, as a few days and weeks passed, his classmates seemed to change their strategy. Midoriya, we heard about you on the news. They didn't say your name, but I'm sure it was you. Please call me. You don't have to do this alone. I was thinking about you today. I hope you're doing okay. I'm here for you if you need to talk. We still miss you, Midoriya. Call us and we'll come running for you. Stop fucking around and tell me where the next target is. We'll get this hit done faster. He could tell by the date that a lot of his friends had seemingly given up on him, or at the very least, they kept him in their minds but realized that texting him wasn't a solution. A few still seemed to text him every once in a while, and judging by the timestamps, he assumed it happened whenever they couldn't fall asleep. He read every single conversation, each message filling him with guilt until there was only one person he had purposely avoided reading up until then. Uraraka. He couldn't tell exactly how many times she'd texted him since the app stopped counting at +99, but even if that was the real number, she'd already beaten the rest of his friends at least threefold. He looked at the date of the last text. 3 days ago. He felt scared, but he knew he had to do it, not without some hesitation. He tapped the conversation open and then scrolled up to the beginning of the unread messages. Deku PLS, don't do this. You don't have to go alone. Where are you? Call me Deku, it's important. PLS, call me All Might. Left the school, I know he's with you, don't you dare go after all for one on her own. Deku, PLS, I am crying right now, answer the phone. PLS, Deku, Deku. He pressed the screen against his chest and looked up at the ceiling. The mental picture of Ochako crying because of him cracked his heart and hurt in a way that he wouldn't have guessed. It hit him differently, for some reason. Probably because she was his best friend, and her positive and always cheerful attitude made the idea of her crying for him all that much worse. Probably. He sighed and looked back at the phone, reading the messages she'd send him during the first few days and weeks after his departure. Deku, you know you can trust me, right? I just want to talk to you, I promise I won't rat you out, I don't want to stop you, I just want to talk, tell me where and I'll meet you there, or just call me whatever you feel more comfortable with, I just miss you like really bad. I need to know that you're okay, Deku. PLS, tell me you're okay. Hey Deku, it's been a while, just checking on you. You can call me whenever if you need me, I keep my phone with me at all times. PLS, call me. Deku, where are you? Deku, PLS, if you have her phone, just call me, okay? Message deleted, message deleted, message deleted. I am sorry, I shouldn't have said anything, I just hope we're okay. Hey Deku, we all figured out you don't have her phone with you, but maybe you do, so I'll keep writing to you just in case I miss you. PLS, call me if you read this. Message deleted, message deleted. I thought I saw you today, I was on patrol and something flew by, it was gone before I knew it. Did you pass by the river? Hey, I know it's late, but if you're reading this, I hope you're doing okay. Deku, you there? Message deleted, message deleted, message deleted, message deleted, message deleted. I saw the news today, it was you, wasn't it? Deku, this is so dangerous. PLS, let us help. The texts kept going and he read every single one. He was touched by her commitment to keeping texting him even though she received nothing but silence from him. She always asked him how he was doing, offered him help, asked him to call her, and wondered if he was the one the news was talking about. And then there were those messages she deleted, and what she had told him, he would never know. He wouldn't blame her if she had insulted him. He realized he didn't deserve a friend like Ochako, someone that cared for him unconditionally like that. He continued to read her texts and noticed how her attitude changed over time. The first few weeks she couldn't keep her worry out of her texts. It soaked them, and he could feel it just by reading them. Then, after a month or so, she seemed to have internalized that he wouldn't message her back, and her messages had instead turned into small check-ins on him. Telling him about things that had reminded her of him. Wishing him good luck. Catching him up with some developments with their classmates. Slipping in the occasional, call me if you need anything, even just someone to talk to for a bit. And then, not too long ago, All Might's death had happened, and she went back into full worry. She'd messaged him every day up until 3 days ago. The deleted messages returned. By the time he was done reading all her messages, he felt emotionally drained. Part of him had felt a strangely warm feeling in his stomach, looking at how worried she had been about him. It let him know just how much she cared for him, and it oddly reassured him. He couldn't quite put his finger on why, but it felt special. For the most part, however, he felt nothing but shame and disappointment. He'd gone places where Ochako shouldn't have followed him. What if she got hurt? What if, God, what if she got killed? Izuku wouldn't be able to keep going after that. Just thinking about it brought back the feeling of losing his breath and wanting to throw up. He had left to do his own thing precisely to protect his friends. And yes, He knew that they would be upset. But knowing they would be worried couldn't be compared with actually reading their worry. Especially Ochako's. He wanted to have lunch with his mom and then just fly to the hotel she was staying at to apologize once again. Let her know how sorry he felt, how much he hated himself right then for not having received her texts. He wanted to look at her eyes and reaffirm his promise that he would be more open and honest with her in the future. He wanted to grab her hands and let her know how much He opened his eyes and shook his head. Wow, Deku, get a hold of yourself, he thought. That had taken a weird turn. Yes, they had gotten a bit more physical the day before, but that only happened because they hadn't seen each other for months. They were running high on adrenaline and they had just finished a crazy dangerous battle. It made sense to share a hug or two, or that one time she touched his cheek. The circumstances made it perfectly acceptable at the time. Now that they were trying to get back to normal, their emotions were supposed to have calmed down. He couldn't just, what? Fly over to see her uninvited and Gigi grab her hands. What was he thinking? She'd get weirded out, and rightfully so. He'd been on the streets for so long that he had forgotten how to act like a regular human being. He needed a reality check. He couldn't do weird stuff like that with his friends. Still, there were other things he could do, things that wouldn't freak her out. Or at least he hoped they wouldn't. You've all been given your keys, Izawa said, standing next to Vlad King. Each room has everything you need. No one's allowed to sleep outside of their room. You may only use the common zones during the hours they're open to the public. Remember, we are guests here until the school administration finds a solution on how to move forward. If any of you would rather not stay here and go back with your families or somewhere else, let us know and we'll relocate you tomorrow, Vlad King said. And there are still some guests that aren't part of the school, so don't make too much noise. Power Loader and the remaining robots spent all of yesterday and today to recover as much as they could from the destruction of the dorms. We've put everything they found in your rooms already. Don't get too hopeful. Almost everything was destroyed. Any questions? The students from classes 2A and 2B exchanged glances, not saying much other than some mumbling among themselves. Ochako sighed and bit her lip. She didn't want to get too hopeful like her teacher said, but she dreaded that most of her things had burned down. For starters, she didn't have any clothes other than the ones Best Jeanist had given them. Not that there was anything wrong with the clothes themselves, they were much better than most of her repertoire in all honesty. But red didn't combine all that well with her cheeks and her hair, and as childish as it may sound, she wanted her own clothes, not clothes that someone else had given her. She hated it when people did charity with her. All right, then go to your rooms, check your belongings, and enjoy your break, Izawa said when no one asked anything. Don't burn down the hotel. I'm looking at you, Bakugo. Oh, come on. It was one time. Let's keep it as a one-time thing, then. You're dismissed. The teachers walked away to talk to the managers, and the 40 students picked up the cases with their shredded costumes and went to either the stairs or the elevators to get to their rooms. What's your room, Ochako? Sue asked, getting next to her. She looked at the key. 306. What's yours? 309. So we're on the same floor, Ribbit. Good to know. Yeah, Mina was talking about us girls hanging in her room later today. I wouldn't mind that. Me neither. It sounds like fun. I feel like there's a lot to talk about. Ochako snorted with derision. Definitely. Besides, it's been a while since we last just hung around together, hasn't it? Sue took a finger to her chin. I think the last time was when we heard the news talking about Midoriya saving the people at the mall. Oh, Ochako said, flinching at the memory. Right. That hadn't been a good day for her. They had all been hearing the rumors about a scary-looking man that had multiple quirks and went around different cities near Shizuoka Prefecture, and they all knew it had to be Deku. They were even trying to figure out a pattern in his appearances, trying to find a way to get to him, to no success. And then, one day, the news covered a story about this mysterious vigilante that had saved many people from a C-tier villain at a shopping mall. He had appeared right when the villain was about to execute a man, and he had taken care of him so fast that no one could tell what he'd done. He subdued the villain with what witnesses described as a lasso of black energy, and had left after making sure no one was hurt. Ochako knew right away that it was Izuku and his black whip, and for a second she was happy to know that he was still okay. Her happiness only lasted until the witnesses began to describe him. His clothes were all covered in cuts, dirt, and blood. I thought he was a villain at first. It all happened so fast, but when he looked at me, he didn't look like a hero on duty. He looked like he was tired. His voice was all raspy like he had a cold, didn't sound very heroic at first. His right arm had the sleeve all teared up and it was covered with nasty scars. She had locked herself up in her room after seeing that and she forgot about her homework and the reports she needed to fill in for her hero work studies. She just hugged her pillow and cried. The image those descriptions created in her mind were heartbreaking. Picturing Izuku all battered up, bloodied, dirty, tired, hurt, and still taking time to save others made too much sense. So much sense it hurt. She even grabbed her phone and messaged him once again. She'd been doing it ever since he left, and she knew it was pointless. She knew he didn't have his phone with her. That even if he did, he wouldn't read them to keep her safe, or whatever dumb excuse he could think of to stay away from them. She knew it accomplished nothing, but she still kept the tiniest ember of hope that maybe one of these days he'd pick up and read them. That maybe the next message she sent would be the one to make him come back. Or at the very least, the one to make him call her. And then she could talk to him, and then maybe she could convince him of something. She didn't know what she wanted him to do, she just knew she wanted to be with him. Whether because her crying had been too loud, her friends were worried about her, or they just needed it as much as she did, she didn't know. But a couple of hours later Mina knocked on her room and invited her to Momo's, where all the girls would have a sleepover. She rejected it at first, but Mina could be very persuasive, and so she eventually agreed to go with her, and it had helped her tremendously. To think that had been the last time they'd all been together just chilling sounded crazy, but she couldn't say it surprised her all that much. As Sue said, so many things had been going on that just talking with friends for a couple of hours sounded like a waste of time. But now that All for One and the League of Villains had been defeated, now that Deku was back, the idea of wasting some time had its appeal. Let me know when you guys go, she told Suyu. And soon enough, she got into her hotel room and took a look at it. It was a clear downgrade from the dorms, but not terribly so. It had a full bathroom, a closet, a TV, two nightstands, and a bed that looked so comfy she wasted no time in jumping over it. Ah, this is life, she said, feeling herself sinking an inch or two into the mattress. She stared at the ceiling and then extended her left hand, looking at the white line on the back of it. Having a scar wasn't that bad, it was just a line. Sure, the texture of her skin changed a bit on it, but it wasn't anything she would be losing any sleep over. She had been lucky enough to have that as her only lingering wound. She felt bad for Eijiro. Losing an eye had to be much more difficult to get used to than a line in her hand. She was used to weird things in her skin, it didn't affect her anymore. Her finger pads and pink cheeks had gotten her teased enough when she was a child. She frowned. Of all the things she thought she'd be learning that day, the one she expected the least was the fact that Izuku had been bullied as a child for being quirkless. During the months of Deku's absence, Bakugo had been very secretive about Izuku's past. He had simply confirmed that Izuku had All Might's quirk and that he was the main target of All for One. They weren't entirely sure what receiving his quirk from All Might meant, and after many days of arguing among themselves, they realized they wouldn't know the truth until Izuku explained it to them. The retelling of his childhood had been heartbreaking. It pained her to hear the struggles and hardships he had to live through. His eyes seemed lost as he told his story, and even though he tried to act like he was over it, she knew better than that. She could hear it in his voice, see it in his dull eyes. A selfish part of herself wished the others weren't there, that it was only Izuku and her, and then she would have been brave enough to hug him. To hold him close, to tell him that it was okay to cry, and maybe she would have cried with him too. She knew he didn't want to play the victim, but he was one.
That is a biatch.
He had been. What he'd been through was horrible to hear, something Ochako had only read about but that she assumed only happened in the worst parts of the country, or wherever the worst kind of people lived. To think that someone as kind, gentle, and bright as Izuku had been ostracized as a child simply because he didn't have a quirk. She didn't think kids could be that cruel. And yet he'd never given up even without friends, even being quirkless, he'd never lost hope in his dream. He'd soldiered through the slings and arrows of life, and he remained a kind, caring soul. It would have been so easy for him to become jaded with life, nihilistic, angry at the world that had wronged him for something that was beyond his control. But that wasn't Izuku. His kind heart was, in her eyes, incorruptible. And that was one of the things she loved the most about him. She groaned and picked up a pillow to cover her face. What the heck was she supposed to do with her feelings? If she could just turn off her brain and follow her heart, she would leave the hotel right then, run all the way to his house, and kiss him the moment he opened the door. But that would be crazy. He had so much on his plate right now. He was still mourning All Might. He was going to become a pro hero. History had its eyes on him. He had so many other things to worry about. She should support him and do her best to lighten his load. She shouldn't come clean about her feelings now, not yet. He needed time to settle down, to fix everything that was going on in his life. He clearly had no time to spare for her, and she was okay with it. She knew he. Beep, beep, beep. She sat up. She knew those generic, basic notification sounds. She peeked on the other side of the bed, and she realized there were a few boxes there. It had to be the things the robots had recovered from the dorms. She immediately grabbed the first box and flung it open, revealing many of her clothes and, resting on top of it, her pink flip phone. Yes, she cheered, grabbing it, holding it tight, and rubbing it against her cheeks. I knew you'd make it. Her phone was basically a brick. She should have known that something as insignificant as the total collapse and destruction of her room wouldn't scratch it. She felt much joy knowing that she wouldn't have to buy a new phone and that she could now text and call her parents. The notifications she'd just received were probably from them, wondering whether she'd gotten her phone back already. She laid back on the bed and, with a big grin on her face, she opened her phone and checked her messaging app to see who'd texted her. She gasped when she saw that. Indeed, her parents had been texting her like crazy, but they weren't her most recent conversation. They were right under Deku. Ochako had to bite her lips and take a deep breath to control herself. For a second, her fingers hesitated. It had been so long since the last time he'd texted her. She'd been waiting for that moment for months, and even though it was just clicking his name to read the new messages, it took courage and determination for her to do so. When she finally did, however, she took in every single character he typed. Hey Uraraka. I just wanted to say I am sorry for everything. For worrying you and making you cry. I thought about calling you many times but I didn't know what to say. I missed you too. I am happy that I am back though we'll make up for lost time. Cry. When did she? Ooh. Read. She said, covering her face with a hand. Keeping her pinky up, she quickly scrolled up in the conversation and, sure enough, she'd mentioned crying a couple of times. Ugh, how embarrassing. Thank God she deleted some of the messages she'd sent when she was at her lowest, when her emotions ran rampant and clouded her judgment, making her think that she just needed to tell him how much she needed him for him to come back. Those would be awkward to explain. Embarrassment aside, however, the fact that Izuku had taken the time to scroll up and read her messages made her heart flutter. And reading that he'd thought about calling her and that he missed her only helped brighten up her day. She stared at the screen, rereading his messages a couple of times until she decided she could allow herself one more embarrassment. Before she could think it through and convince herself that she shouldn't do it, she pressed the call button. She waited for a second, too, and then she heard him. Hello, Uraraka. Is everything alright? She sighed into her phone. You picked up, she mentioned with a smile. A short silence followed until Izuku cleared his throat. Yeah, like I said, I'm truly, honestly, so sore. Don't, Deku, it's fine, she interrupted him. You don't have to apologize. You already did, and I forgave you, too. I'm just happy that you're back and we can talk to each other. Of course, he trailed off, and she raised an eyebrow. What is it? No, nothing, I just, well, if it makes you feel any better, but maybe it doesn't, maybe it's not the right thing to say. I, she could hear him move the phone away from his face and give a defeated sigh. Sorry, he said, his voice next to the phone once again. Okay, I'll say it. I didn't take my phone with me because I suspected you guys would text me and just now, reading your messages. Had I read them when you sent them, I probably wouldn't have continued with my mission. Deku, I missed you too, you know. It was hard being alone. The idea of running to his house was starting to sound less crazy by the second. But now I'm back, he said, suddenly cheerful, but she suspected his face would be sporting a fake smile right then. And you know what? What? I have another promise for you. She slowly sat up. What is it? She wondered in an almost whisper. I feel like I owe you for all the unread messages you left me. No, no, hear me out, he said, catching her before she could interrupt him. I feel bad you never gave up on me, and that means a lot. So, I mean, maybe it's a bit presumptuous of me. But anyway, I promise you that I'll never leave you unread again. If you ever want to talk, no matter what it is, or how late it is, just text me or give me a call, and I'll pick up. I don't want to make you worry like that ever again. She took off her shoes and crouched on the bed, hugging her knees against her chest. You can't promise that, Deku. Why not? It's kind of a lot. And she giggled, moving her free hand to play with a lock of her hair. If you do, I'm going to call you in the middle of the night. Until I get back into a regular sleep schedule, I'm probably gonna be up. He laughed, but he must have sensed the fleeting worry that crossed her face since he stopped and cleared his throat again. Sorry, it's nothing, really. Don't worry about it. You know I will. Quote dot dot dot. I guess you will. Anyway, what's up with you? Are you back home? She asked him, unashamedly trying to change the subject, but also trying to get him to talk more. She wished her phone had a frontal camera to facecam him and see his face, but his voice would do for now. I am, yes. Just got here 5 minutes ago. Mom's cooking lunch right now. How about you? Are you still at the hospital, or did you go to that hotel they were talking about? I'm at the hotel. It's not as good as the dorms, but it'll do for now. So, what did you do after we left? Oh, a lot happened, actually. You talked to Eri, right? How did you know? She smiled, realizing he had indeed been the one to make her smile again. She looked really happy. Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, I talked to her. And then, well, I mean, it's a long story. Deku. Yes. What is it? She rolled until she was lying on her belly, her feet rocking back and forth, and her chin resting on her right hand. Tell me everything. I want to know. It took him a few seconds, but she could hear some movement on the other end of the line, and judging by the sound of a mattress in his little, adorable oomph, she assumed he had also laid down on his bed. All right, I'll tell you everything. End. Where stories live. Discover now.